Picture this: a talented writer known for her enchanting essays suddenly hits an impregnable wall. The words that once flowed like a river now seem to be trapped behind a dam. Every topic she turns to, every thought she tries to articulate, all seem to evaporate into thin air. Her mind, once a lush garden of ideas, feels barren and dry. She embarks on a quest for inspiration, exploring every nook and cranny of her mind and the world around her. She immerses herself in books, art, music, hoping to ignite the spark that seems to have been extinguished. Yet the frustration only grows. The more she pushes, the more elusive the inspiration becomes. It's as if her creative well has run dry, and no amount of effort can refill it. In her desperation, she starts to question her talent, her passion. Maybe she's lost it, she thinks. Maybe she was never truly a writer. The self-doubt creeps in, wrapping her in its cold, paralyzing grip. But then, something unexpected happens. One evening, while she's sitting on her porch, sipping a cup of tea, watching the sunset, it happens. The inspiration strikes. Out of nowhere, an idea comes to her, clear and bright like the first star of the evening. It's brilliant, it's beautiful. It's everything she's been searching for. She rushes to her desk, her hand barely keeping up with her thoughts as she pours them onto the page. The words flow freely, effortlessly, like they always used to. And she realizes in that moment the paradox that had been hindering her creativity. The more she had strived, the more she had chased after inspiration, the further it had drifted away. And just when she had stopped trying so hard, inspiration struck. Now, you might wonder, how did that happen? This is where the law of reverse effect enters our story. Imagine trying to fall asleep, but you're too focused on the ticking of the clock. You try harder and harder to ignore the sound, but it only becomes more prominent in your mind, keeping you awake. This is a snapshot of the law of reverse effect, a concept that suggests the harder we try to do something, the more we could potentially hamper our progress. Let's take a closer look. The law of reverse effect is a psychological principle that proposes when our conscious and subconscious minds are in conflict, the subconscious will often win out. It's like when you're learning to ride a bike. At first, you're so focused on balancing, pedaling, steering all at the same time, but the more you think about it, the more you wobble and fall. It's only when you relax and let your subconscious take over that you finally start to glide. So why does this happen? Well, it's all about the balance between effort and relaxation. When we're too focused on achieving a specific outcome, we can unintentionally create stress and tension, which can actually hinder our progress. It's like trying to pick up a delicate piece of origami with a pair of heavy-duty tongs. The harder you squeeze, the more likely you are to crush it. But if you relax your grip, the task becomes much easier. So, what's the takeaway here? Well, it's not to stop trying or to give up on your goals. Rather, it's about finding a balance between effort and relaxation, between striving and letting go. It's about allowing your subconscious mind to do its thing without the interference of your conscious mind's worries and expectations. So the harder you try, the less likely you are to succeed. Sounds counterintuitive, right? But remember, sometimes it's in the absence of conscious effort that we find our true potential and achieve our greatest successes. So, next time you're struggling with a task, take a step back, breathe, and let the law of reverse effect work its magic. Let's delve into a tale of a merchant and a sage to understand this better. Once upon a time, there lived a wealthy merchant. He was known far and wide for his riches and opulence. But what he desired more than anything was the respect and admiration of a wise sage who lived in his town. The sage was revered for his wisdom and humility. The merchant, eager to earn his approval, decided to throw a grand feast in the sage's honor. The day arrived, and the merchant spared no expense. The finest wines flowed like rivers, the most exotic dishes were served, and the most lavish decorations adorned the banquet hall. The merchant, clad in his most extravagant robes, boasted about his wealth and success, hoping to impress the sage. But instead of the admiration he sought, the merchant saw a look of disappointment in the sage's eyes. Surprised and disheartened, the merchant asked the sage, "Why do you look so disheartened? Have I not provided everything to make this a grand feast?" The sage replied, "You have indeed, but your need for approval has clouded the essence of true hospitality. the grandeur of this feast, your boasting, they all stem from your desire to impress, not from genuine kindness or respect. This need to be admired has overshadowed your true character. This, my friends, is a classic example of the law of reverse effect in action. The merchant's intense desire to impress the sage led him to behave in a way that was contrary to his aim. His efforts to win approval were so transparent that they ended up being counterproductive. The more he tried to impress the sage, the less impressed the sage was. His need for approval was his undoing. The story of the merchant and the sage serves as a reminder that sometimes when we strive too hard for something, we end up pushing it further away. The law of reverse effect teaches us that a relaxed, balanced approach often yields better results than intense, desperate striving. In his quest to impress, the merchant ended up doing the exact opposite. This law doesn't just apply to our actions, it influences our emotions too. Picture this. You're feeling anxious and you tell yourself, don't worry, over and over, but does this mantra really help? Often it only heightens your anxiety. This is what we call the mental control paradox. The harder you try to suppress an emotion, the more potent it becomes. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The more force you use, the higher it pops up when you finally lose control. Think about a time when you tried to suppress laughter in a serious situation. The effort to not laugh only made the urge stronger, didn't it? This is the paradox at play. In essence, our minds aren't designed to respond positively to forceful control, especially when it comes to our emotions. So don't fight the tide. Allow your feelings to flow. The more you try to suppress your feelings, the more powerful they become. Ever heard of the pink elephant experiment? It's an intriguing study in psychology that exposes the paradox of thought suppression. Picture this. If I tell you not to think about a pink elephant, what's the first thing that pops into your mind? Yes, a pink elephant. It's a strange conundrum, isn't it? Professor David Clarke's research delves deep into this phenomenon. He talks about it extensively in his Runaway Mind blog. The more we endeavor to suppress certain thoughts, the more they tend to surface. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The more force you apply, the more it resists and wants to pop back up. This is the paradox of thought suppression. Our minds are not built to erase thoughts, but to generate them. So when you try not to think about something, you end up thinking about it even more. The key to breaking free from this paradox is letting go. Just as a river flows unhindered down its course, so should our thoughts and actions. This is the concept of effortless action. It's not about not caring or giving up, but rather about not forcing things. It's about allowing your actions to flow naturally without resistance. Consider the Chinese philosophy of Wu Wei, which translates to non-doing or effortless action. It doesn't mean being inactive, but rather acting without strain or struggle. It's about embracing the natural flow of life and allowing things to happen in their own time. When we let go of our need to control, to force, to resist, we open ourselves to a more natural way of being. We become more flexible, more adaptable, more in tune with the world around us. We stop fighting against the current and start moving with it. When you stop resisting, you start living. So, what have we learned today? We've seen how the law of reverse effect can sometimes make our efforts counterproductive. Like the writer, the merchant, and even in our attempts to control our emotions, trying too hard can often lead to the opposite of what we want. This is particularly true when our focus is fixated on the outcome, leading us down a path of worry and frustration. We've also learned that the key to overcoming this paradox lies in letting go. By releasing our grip on the outcome and focusing instead on the present moment, we naturally shift towards responsive action. This doesn't mean we stop caring or stop trying, but instead we stop forcing. We allow our actions to flow effortlessly from a place of calm and presence. In the end, it all comes down to this simple truth. Remember, when you stop trying so hard, results start to flow naturally.